I'm going to call to order a meeting of the Audit and Internal Controls Committee of the Nassau County Interim Finance Authority. It is 6:40 p.m. on November 6th. Before we proceed, I'm going to ask Chairman Kessel if he would appoint every member of the board here present to both the Audit and Finance Committee members' meetings on a temporary
Yes.
basis.
So I hereby appoint all the members of the board that are present to the Audit and Finance Committees temporarily.
Thank you. We'll proceed then. The first order of business for the Audit and Internal Controls Committee is the approval of the minutes from the past meeting. Would somebody care to move that we approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is it seconded?
Second.
It's made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. The minutes are approved. The second item is to authorize an increase in our audit fee. I think we can make quick work of this. RSM is our auditor, not the county's auditor anymore, so they audit us on a standalone basis, and they need a higher fee for the next and what I believe will probably be the last audit, since we're going out for bid for the whole package and trying to align our audit with the counties.
Correct.
So if you can, Carl, if you can give us a brief update on that so we can.
Thank you and
move the
good
motion.
evening. You're being asked to consider authorizing an increase in fees to RSM, our independent financial auditor. We're conducting our 2023 audit engagement. When our current 5-year contract was entered into in 2019, the fee that was authorized for that, for the upcoming engagement was $39,650. Due to rising costs involving recruitment and retention within the accounting industry, RSM is requesting an increase to $50,000 for the engagement itself. Can I answer any questions?
No, I would just observe as a person who is a recovering audit partner, it's been 17 years since my last opinion. I understand the industry. It's not only that, we used to get an economy of scale when RSM was auditing both the county and us. You sort of got the volume discount, which is no longer available to us. So I think that's a fair increase for them to request. It's still a reasonable fee. It was reasonable before, it's reasonable after. And of course, the real exercise for us is going to be going out for bid for a new auditor. And the county's timing it about the same time, I assume, and we'll all try to maybe hire the same auditor and get back to that economy of scale. So with that, any questions for Carl? Somebody like to move the resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved, seconded.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Thank
Aye.
you.
I vote aye as well. The resolution is passed. We'll remand it to the full board. The last motion is to adjourn this committee meeting. Would somebody like to move to adjourn?
I
Made.
vote to adjourn.
Made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Committee's adjourned. Mr. Chairman, the Finance Committee is yours.
Okay, and since I appointed the board members present to the committee interim, first a call to order. We all here? Okay.
Still here.
Okay, don't leave.
Now we
Don't
can.
leave. The approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting on November 17th, 2022, so it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Do
I'll
I
move
hear
it.
a motion?
I'll move it.
Chris, is there a second? Okay, John, any comments, any changes, corrections? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the resolution carries. Now I have, any other business to come before the committee?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, so, is there a second to adjourn? John? Okay. All those in favor to adjourn say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We now go into the regular board meeting. First, I'll just call the meeting to order, and just for the record, roll call, Richard Kessel here.
Chris Wright is here.
Charo Esdrin here.
John Zazo here.
Okay, thank you guys. Welcome, we do have a quorum. Before we go to first order of business, just want to make a couple of comments briefly. Number one, I want to thank the governor for appointing me back to NIFA. This is like old home week. I was on the first NIFA board, was appointed by Governor Pataki back in the year 2000, and served, what Evan tells me, about 7 years. I was a board member and director. I then became ultimately a vice chairman and acting chairman for a number of years on the board. It was a pleasure to serve, and it's really an honor to work with this board and the members who I'm getting to. Chris, I've known for a long time. I won't date us.
35 years.
Right, about 35 years, right? So we know each other a long time. Charo, I've known, right, for about, what, 20 years, you think? 20 years?
You can date
Yeah,
me.
Well, I'm not, I don't want to do that.
You're both married.
I don't want to do that, but it's great to see you guys, and of course, John, we just met, but we've got some things in common we just discovered, and I want to just say I'm just happy to be here. I do want you to know that I did reach out to the two board members that couldn't be here this evening, and they hopefully will be at our next meeting. It's a pleasure working with all of you. I really thank you for it. And I do want to also indicate that, you know, we got a lot of business to do, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I do want to just make a comment about Adam Barsky, who was my predecessor. I've known Adam for a long time, not as long as I know Chris, but I happened to work with Adam when he was Deputy Secretary for Authorities in the Pataki administration. I was, at the time, Chairman and CEO of LIPA, and worked with him for a number of years, and it was really a pleasure. And I've known Adam all this time. I've kept in touch with him, and I just want to indicate I think he did a fabulous job here at NIFA. And I commend him for all the work he's done, as well as I commend all the board members for all the great things that you've done monitoring the county and benefiting the taxpayers. I do want to say that over the last couple of months, as the possibility of me getting appointed was pretty evident, that Adam and I worked together. We met on a number of occasions. He's a great texter, Adam, so he still texts me once or twice a week about things. He's given me a lot of sound advice. And so I want to just indicate to the public what a great job Adam did here at NIFA. He'll be missed, and I only hope to be half as good as he was in what he did. I also just want to point out to the board that I'm very proud to have hired two people at NIFA when I was first there. In the year 2000, Frank Zarb was the first chairman of NIFA. And in fact, I still talk to Frank frequently. He moved to Florida, maybe because the taxes are so high out here. But Frank was a great guy and a great mentor. And Frank and I went out and were very lucky to hire a number of very good staff people. And one of them is sitting here tonight, Evan Cohn. So I hired Evan, along with Frank, as the Deputy Executive Director of NIFA 23 years ago, right, Evan?
That's, so you tell me.
No, well, I'm, you know, just trying, and I
Thank you.
also hired Jeremy Wise, who is our counsel, 23 years ago. And they've continued to be here for a long time and have served the people well, the taxpayers well. And it's just great to see, I see Evan in the bagel store.
Yes.
Frequently at Town Bagel in Belmore. But it's great to see Evans become the director of NIFA. I remember the first director was Rich Luke.
Yes.
Frank used to complain about Rich Luke all the time, and Jeremy, by the way. It's just great to see you guys back again. And also, I have to mention Kathy. I don't think I hired you, Kathy, but I recommended you because you worked for me at LIPA. And I think you're doing a great job. And the whole staff is doing a great job. Connell and Martha, I thank all of you. Carl, I thank all of you. I think you're doing a great job, and I hope that that continues. At this point, we've got approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll approve the minutes.
Okay, September 21st, 2023 was the last minutes. Is there a second? All right, are there any changes to the minutes or comments or additions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I ask at this point Chris Wright to report from the Audit Committee.
Mr. Chairman, at a meeting of the Audit Committee that just concluded moments ago, all the board members present, being members of that committee, we unanimously approved an authorization to increase the RSLM LLP fees and to authorize signing documents that make that happen. So I will move that we, as a full board, pass what we just passed at committee.
Okay, so do I hear a motion?
Made.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there a second? John, seconded. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I guess I don't have to report anything because we're not doing anything from finance. Now, we've got a couple of things. I think, Evan, what I want to do is maybe take up the financial plan, the
Sure.
4-year financial plan first in public. Again, I want to make just one point before I turn it over to Evan to report on the financial plan. Obviously, I was just appointed a few weeks ago, and so the guts of the financial plan was already done by staff and work done by this board to some extent prior to my arriving here. And while I fully support the financial plan, I don't want to take credit for something that I didn't do. I came in, we are required to adopt the budget and four-year financial plan, and we're going to do that. But I just wanted to state for the record that I think staff did a very thorough job. I remember doing some of these plans back 20 years ago, and some of them sound very similar to what we did 20 years ago. But with that, I'll hand it over to Evan to talk about the four-year financial plan and then take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is behind tab 4 in everyone's board books. So on October 30th, the county legislature adopted a multi-year financial plan for 2024 through 2027. The first year of which is the 2024 budget, with minor amendments to the administration's proposed multi-year financial plan. Consequently, the adopted financial plan that is before the directors for approval tonight is virtually identical to the proposed plan that we analyzed and discussed in our October 24th staff report. In that report, we acknowledge that the county's near-term finances are in a better position than they have been in recent years. In fact, we are projecting a surplus in 2023 and conclude at this time that the projected risks in 2024, which we estimate range from $68.7 million to $71.8 million, should be manageable by the county. However, we also note that we are still unable to determine if the county's good fortunes are a result of careful planning that will continue into the future, or are more a product of a happy confluence of exogenous forces and activities that may not last. So consequently, in accordance with the NIFA Act, we need to look beyond 2023 and 2024's finances to assess the likelihood of the county incurring a deficit of 1% or more. Regarding the out years, our assessment of projected risks is significant and would exceed the 1% threshold that requires NIFA to impose a control period if they are not resolved and these risks become deficits. Not to be overlooked, we also note that our projections in 2026 and 2027 do not account for the additional labor costs likely to result from the next round of collective bargaining for unions whose contracts expire June 30th of 2026. We are following sales tax revenue very closely since it comprises approximately 46% of all revenues in the major funds. The proportion of the budget supported by sales tax revenue has been growing each year, which is only beneficial to the budget during a period of economic expansion. Of obvious concern to us, and I think should be for everyone, is that in the ongoing period of high inflation that we are right now, it's causing significant economic uncertainty, and it is unknown if or when the current inflation-driven price increases, which results in more revenue to the county, will negatively impact purchasing decisions, which then would result in a possible recession or less revenue to the county. Some of the known risks that we are also closely monitoring relate to the amount of revenue the county derives from fines and real estate-related fees, one of which is currently being litigated. The county is also including certain resources to fund its operating budget, which are not recognized as revenue under generally accepted accounting principles. We are projecting that spending on early intervention and social services program costs are likely to far exceed budgeted levels. But to mitigate these risks, the county should be commended that in the adopted plan, it does include contingency reserves of $39.5 million in 2024, $21 million in 2025, $17 million in 2026, but they include nothing in 2027. The county's near-term financial outlook is also bolstered by various off-budget reserves, which as of September 30th total approximately $578 million. We note that these resources could support limited expenditures in future years for, among other purposes, tax certiorari refunds, judgments and settlements, and retirement system costs. However, we caution that the reserves should not be used to fund recurring expenses, as that would create a fiscal cliff in the term of a large gap between recurring operating revenues and recurring operating expenditures when the reserves are exhausted. The county plans to augment these reserves with approximately $270 million in aid it received under the American Rescue Plan Act. All good, but should not be used to support recurring expenditures. Despite the availability of the aforementioned reserves, we believe they are insufficient to cover the county's known risks and long-term liabilities, which include the county's long-term liabilities for tax certiorari refunds, non-certiorari litigation, workers' compensation claims, and the county's contingent risk stemming from deteriorating finances at the Nassau Healthcare Corporation. These risks are substantial and could interrupt the fiscal progress that has been made by the county. Notwithstanding these concerns, we are recommending that the board approve the adopted multi-year financial plan for 2024 through 2027. And that concludes my comments, but I'll be happy to entertain any questions if anyone has any.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions for Evan because we read the staff report, and I think the staff did a fine job preparing it, summarizing the risks that face the county as well as the positive things that have been happening and could happen. And of course, in my view, and you've heard this before, the single largest of which is the situation at the hospital, which in and of itself would create, if the county had to assume that debt, the expense of that year would create a deficit that's a multiple of the trigger for a control period. And that's the biggest risk. And so while that's out, I don't know that we're ever going to be in a position to end the control period unless the debt is paid down or the hospital situation is remediated. So I think you did a great job summarizing all the risks, particularly that one. And I think you're to be commended for that. And I agree with your conclusion that we ought to approve the multi-year plan, as we have in the past, particularly with always particular emphasis on the year before us, which seems pretty solid. So I would move the resolution, but then obviously others can comment.
All right.
But I'll move the resolution.
Tara, do you have any comment? or-
I do not.
John?
No, I did not.
All right, just to follow up on what Chris said, and I agree 100%. I mean, obviously, as I said, while I wasn't here, I've been following this situation for a long time. And we are going to get a briefing tonight about the hospital, a short public briefing, and then more briefing in executive session. But I do want to indicate that I think Chris is hitting the nail on the head. The hospital is in a very precarious situation right now. And coming in and, looking at the hospital from my perspective and taking a look at some of the numbers that we're getting on an interim basis from our consultants, they're great concern to me. And what is concern to me is not just that the hospital is being backed by the county in terms of the bonds, but there are so many other negative impacts that could accrue to the county if the hospital were, for instance, to run out of cash. And while I'm not saying that the hospital is going to run out of cash, I think they're in a very precarious situation, and that could happen. And it's something that we are going to address as a board, and something that we're ongoing discussions about with the hospital, and we'll be hearing in a few minutes from our consultants. But I support the adoption of the 4-year plan, but I echo Chris's comments that I think that for the time being, it is critically important that we continue this control period. I didn't realize when I was at night for the first time, we were not in a control period.
Correct.
And so we never had to, for instance, approve different contracts, a number of which we're going to be approving at tonight's meeting. I didn't realize I had to approve certain contracts, and staff has to approve certain contracts. This is all new. And I do want to indicate publicly that I have reached out to the county executive, who also, I know for over 30 years, I have a good relationship with Bruce Blakeman. I'm going to be seeing him in a couple of weeks. And, because this is a partnership, we're all in this together. Our interest is the taxpayers of the county, and we've got to work together as partners. And I hope that my relationship with some of the legislators, although there may be some changes, there will be some changes after tomorrow, after January 1st, working with the legislature and the county executive, that we can all work together to accomplish what we need to accomplish to protect the taxpayers of Nassau County. But I support adopting this plan as well.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the four-year plan is adopted. I do want to just indicate, and Chris said it too, I think the staff did a fabulous job. I had very little to do with it, other than a little editing here and there, but Evan, you and Jeremy, and all the staff really deserve a lot of credit. Martha,
Martha.
for all the work, you just did a terrific, terrific job, and I really
I
appreciate
think they
it.
do a great job moderating comments from 6 people, too.
Well, that's true. I think that is true.
I've never known if there was a tie to break in the background. so.
So I'll thank, on behalf of staff, I want to thank you for these kind words. And yes, it's a group team effort, so we all work hard to, we aim to please, as they say at McDonald's, I think.
Or please aim.
Please aim.
Depends on how you do it. Okay, so, going out of order a little bit, because I wanna try to save some time here. We've got a number of contracts that are before us tonight. As per what I talked about before, we have Central Nassau Guidance and Counseling, Legal Aid, TransDev, which is the bus service, VOD Contracting, Lero Engineers, and John Sabetta and Sons. And I'll now ask Martha to address those contracts and inform the board about, in short summary, what those contracts are all about. Martha, thank you. And by the way, I indicated this to the board, I think you did an excellent job in summarizing the
Thank you.
contracts in the background materials that we received.
Thank you. Item 27423, it's a contract with the Department of Human Services. The vendor was selected through a request for expression of interest. There were 60 responses and 7 candidates were selected and evaluated for the award. Our office has received 3 contracts, including the one for Central Nassau Guidance, which is the one in front of you for approval. The chairman approved previously the 2 other contracts. The purpose of the contract is to set up and establish a new intensive crisis stabilization center that will provide instant access to in-person behavioral crisis help. Clients at the new crisis centers can receive triage, screening and assessment, therapeutic intervention, peer support, ongoing observation, and care collaboration with family members. The initial amount disbursed by the county will be approximately $2.9 million. Central Nassau will also receive funding from the New York State Office of Mental Health and the Office of Addiction Services and Support. The total contract to be approved is approximately $11.9 million, and the term runs from 10/1/2023 through 9/30/2027.
What building are they rehabbing for this?
It's gonna be the building where the central guidance.
Or where they are now?
Yes,
Okay.
where they are now,
Because that's $3 million in there just for that. Okay. Got it.
yes.
That's my only question.
Where are they?
They're in on South Oyster Bay Road.
Right, not
In
Broadway,
Hicksville.
but Southwest of Bay Road.
Yes, South Oyster Bay Road, yes. Are there any other questions?
No, why don't you summarize all of them, and then we can vote individually, but
Yeah.
we
Okay.
can,
Yeah.
just
Sure.
so you don't have to keep coming back and forth.
Okay, sure. The next item is Legal Aid Society. The Legal Aid Society is contracted with the Office of Management and Budget. The NIFA Board of Directors approved the original contract on February 4, 2020. However, its approval was limited to 4 years. That was from January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2023, to align the item with the term of the multi-year plan that was approved at that year, which was 2020 through 2023. Per the terms of the agreement, the FY 2024 budget has appropriated approximately $9.8 million, which is the amount that is now being requested for approval.
And that's a not to exceed, right? Because it is what, it depends on the caseload.
No, that's the limit of the budget, so that would be the amount.
Right, but in other words, they don't necessarily spend that if they don't have the cases.
That
I
is
think.
correct, right,
Right.
Andy?
Okay.
I think that's with 18B, it's not with legal aid.
Oh, this, illegal aid is
Okay.
fixed. Okay, that's what I
Alright.
asked.
That's
Okay,
just
different.
two components of it, just
Got
so
it.
you know.
Okay.
So that one would be based on cases.
And it's consistent with the prior,
Thank you.
this is really
Yes.
consistent with the 4th year of the contract we looked at in the first, or the 5th year. In
No,
the first place.
actually, the contract has a specific language that the amount that was approved back in 2020 by
Right.
the ledge, not by us, because we only approved
Right.
4 years and it was 32 point something million. That amount gets overwritten by what it gets appropriated in the budget, which is the one that we have adopted now.
But it's not wildly inconsistent. It's part of the pattern.
It's like about maybe 500,000 more. I think it was 8 point something million versus this 9.8.
Got it.
Okay. The next item is 27923, which is Transdev Services, Inc. Transdev Services is the current service provider for the bus system in Nassau County. The vendor was selected through an open competitive bidding process. The evaluation committee determined that Transdev provided the most comprehensive and responsive proposal, demonstrating an excellent understanding and superior overall expertise for the total performance measurement required for the management, operation, and maintenance of the county transit system. The County Office of the Inspector General actually was present at each evaluation of the committee meetings. The new agreement moves away from the projected annual budgets. Instead, it includes a 3% yearly increase. The contract term is 7 years, and it has an option of, has 2 renewal options. One, 5 years, and the second one will be 3 years. The value for the first 7 years of the contract is approximately $1.3 billion, which does not include any funding for any capital improvement.
That's in total, not per year.
For the 7 years,
Okay.
yes.
Total.
Total, yes.
Renewal at whose option?
Excuse
Who
me?
can- At whose option can the contract be renewed? The county's, or does it have to be mutual?
The county.
Right? Is it? Okay, good. So it's not like they can be forced, the county can't be forced to renew by the vendor, it's the other way around.
No.
Okay.
No, it's an agreement. The first year of the contract is it's approximately 169.3 million.
Is this one of the largest contracts we've ever had to approve?
I believe it is the largest.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it's the largest.
The courthouse just feels like it.
As we know.
Yeah. 268.23 is VRD contracting. The vendor was selected through an open competitive bidding process, and VRD contracted was the lowest responsible bidder. The contract's term is 15 months from the notice to proceed and is valued at approximately $26.1 million. The contractor will provide general construction services for the new second precinct station house project. The project will be funded with capital proceeds. Approval of this contract does not guarantee approval of future borrowing authorization. And the next item is 264.20, I'm sorry, are there any questions on that one?
This is not a controversial build, this is a rebuild of the second precinct after the fire and needing to relocate, right?
Correct.
And there's no community opposition to the site or anything like that? That could because that makes it cost more. Yeah, okay.
All right. Item 264.23 is Little Engineers. This contract is with the Department of Public Works. The county issued an RFP and received 17 proposals. The evaluation team awarded a contract to the top 10 firms with the highest technical rating. The NIFA Board of Directors has approved so far a total of 5 contracts and 2 and 5 contracts at the meetings on July 13 and September 21st. So with this contract, basically, we have received a total of 8. We have 2 more that are in the pipeline. The contract term is 5 years from the notice to proceed, and each contract is valued at $10.5 million. The firms will be reimbursed for direct labor costs based on approved wage rates and the agree upon multiplier. The funding source will depend on the proposed scope of services. Are there any questions on this one?
But there's one more to go, right? Because this is the panel, we did 3 or 4 of them last time, and
We've done so far 7, this is 8, we have 2
they're
more.
all up to 10.5, depending on what you need.
Correct, we have 2 more, right? And I don't know where they are, but they're in the pipeline. The last contract will be 261.23. which is John Civera and Sons. The vendor was selected through an open competitive bidding process. John Civera and Sons contract is in the amount of $7.3 million and was accepted as the lowest responsible bidder. This contract is for the Carroll Mill Road Bayway Avenue rehabilitation over the Long Island Railroad. The repair is to the existing three-span bridge and part of the approach roadways and sidewalks in the village of Great Neck Plaza between Great Neck Road and Ascot Ridge. The contract will be reimbursed by federal aid, and that's about $3.1 million. There is a state aid portion of about $0.6 million, and the local share or the county share is $3.6 million. Are there any questions on this last item?
Any questions on the part of the board?
No.
No. Okay, Martha, just to ask you, maybe worth repeating, but, and I know you spoke to me about this when we first met. What are the levels of approval for contracts in terms of staff versus the chair versus the board?
From 50 up to 499 before 5 million. 500,000 is staff. From 500 to 4.9 is the chairman, and 5 million and above is the board.
Okay, so one of the things that Evan spoke to me about, and maybe we'll take it up at the next board meeting, is are those numbers too low? I was surprised when I came in and you gave me a number of contracts to sign, and I think that at some point we ought to take a look at, and I'm gonna ask Evan if you'd work with Martha and staff to maybe make some recommendations to the board in terms of the level of approval. I'm not, we don't want to change our approval process, but maybe the numbers ought to be raised a little bit. So if you could take a look at that, along with Martha and our staff, and report back to the board at the next meeting, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, we will certainly do that review and prepare a report of, if you will, a sensitivity analysis.
Yeah, how much would we have approved or not at different
Right.
dollar levels? Because I do know, Rich, when we first approved the control period, when 50,000 was the format, there were quite a few $49,000 contracts.
Right, no surprise, right?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
you know, we had to be careful about what that would be.
Right.
How much would be $99,000 contracts if
Right.
we made it 100, you know?
And Evan, you
Yeah.
could take a look at that too.
Yes, we certainly
And I
can.
think just an important point for the board to understand, and for the public too, is that, you know, a lot of these contracts are routine in terms of the few that I've seen so far. But, you know, when we approve a contract, when this board approves a contract, or I sign, or Evan or staff signs a contract, we're putting our names to something. And there are some projects, for instance, Chara, we talked about at the family court,
Yes.
where, you know, we're getting constant change orders. And, you know, I don't think that they're routine. I think that some of these contracts we have to follow up on and monitor them, because ultimately, we're as responsible as the county is. And in the instance of the family court, I asked Martha to send an email over to the county indicating that I was concerned about some of the frequency of change orders at the family court. You know, we were talking about it before. You know, I was around back in the early 2000s, and we were talking about the family court. It's still being built. It's probably not going to be open for business for at least another year, if not way beyond that. And I want to tell you that we sent that email, and 1 or 2 days later, I got a call from some of the judges who are operating in very bad, dilapidated headquarters to familiarize me with it. And I wound up going over to the family court building, the hopefully soon done family court building, and touring it. And it's got a ways to go. But I learned a lot from going over there. And the county has agreed, the judges actually, Tom Adams, who's the county attorney, I used to work with him when I was at the IDA, did a great job, has promised to give us monthly reports on the progress of the family court building. And I think that, you know, I just think that's something that's gonna be very important going forward. When we've got a big contract like that, and there are concerns, and if the board members have concerns about some of these, they ought to bring it to my attention or to staff's attention, and we will monitor them. Because when you're signing away all these change orders, you know, they're done on an individual basis, but they add up to tens of millions of dollars in the case of the family court. And I think we have a responsibility to the taxpayers to monitor the progress of, for instance, the family court building, to know that the change orders, that there is progress made, and that now hopefully, the opening of the courthouse is more on time. So I just wanna make that point.
I would like to just say one thing to piggyback on that. Chairman, as we spoke about also, you know, due to my personal being familiar with family court and its everyday operations, I would also request, you know, getting a tour and seeing, so, you know, we as a board could piggyback off of my experience with the family courts, since I am in family court very often, and I think it's important that somebody here, you know, could see, you know, what the progress is, and I would request that myself as well.
And what I will do is I will arrange for another tour and invite
Thank
all
you.
the board members
That
to
would be
come with me.
great.
I mean, I think it's a learning experience. And if we're being asked to sign all these contracts and change orders, we ought to see what's going on over there. I'm not being critical. I think that the county is, you know, trying to make progress. They've initiated litigation to the original contractor. There are so many things that you could learn just by going over there. So I will set that up.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yep. So now we've got all of these contracts. You wanna take, is it okay with the board to take them all together, or do we wanna do them?
Yeah, unless anybody needs to recuse, I would move that we pass items 5 through 10 Roman as a block.
I would second that.
Okay, any further comments before we move on them? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, now, we are going to go into executive sessions in a few minutes. And we're probably gonna have to come out and vote on at least one item. But again, before I came to NIFA, we hired Alvarez and Marcel as consultants to, as we did back in 2020, to study the situation at the hospital. They've done a great job, I have to say. And by the way, I just put this on the record, Alvarez and Marcel was chosen by this board to audit the IDA when I was over at the IDA. So it's a small world, and I'm not sure they did such a good job on the audit, even though I didn't find anything wrong, but they are terrific, and have a tremendous amount of expertise in the operation of the hospital. And we're gonna discuss some of this in executive session, but I thought it would be timely for them to make a brief public presentation on an interim basis. They have not finished their report yet, but I think it would be an education just to hear from them for a few minutes before we go into executive session. So are they here, Carl? Okay, you wanna call in Martin
I'll get them.
and Patricio and
Chairman, while we wait, I'd also like to say, you know, thank you too for stepping into this position,
Thank you.
and personally reaching out to each and every one of us and giving us an update and bringing us into the loop, and, you know, I'm very excited moving forward to work with you.
Thank you, I look forward to
And
working with all of
I
you.
echo that motion, so.
Yeah, no, and listen, and Chris and I talked about it, a day or two after I was appointed. You know, we all have one vote. This has gotta be a collegial process, and it will be. I think it has been in the past, certainly. And I look forward to working with all of you, and I did talk to Lester over the weekend, and to Mo, last week, and we all work together. And I don't want any board member to be surprised by anything that NIFA does. I think that's very important. And I will try to keep you informed on a regular basis about things that are going on, because, you know, I'm there, you know, I have a role to play. I'm trying to spend a couple of days a week at the offices. By the way, you're all welcome to come to the offices. Maybe we'll have a little holiday lunch or something, and you can come in, and you're welcome to come over and visit. And I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
And again,
It's a great place for breaks if you're on jury duty, too.
well, that's true. It was.
Done that once or twice.
It's, my doctor, my main doctor is with NYU Langone, and he's gonna be moving right next door later this month. And it is a good location, and you're all welcome to always come
Thank
up.
you.
And
Thank
if you
you.
ever need it, and maybe you'll find me there. I'll come a couple of days a week. Okay, so let me just introduce, Martin, you here? Oh, yeah, Martin and Patricio, you're here?
Yes.
Okay, come up so as I indicated to you before, we've hired Alvarez and Marcel to take a hard look at the hospital. I think that this is it, right now, is our number one priority, is the future of the hospital. And I think when you look at it, there's an interim, there's an interim issue, 212, oh, no, it's a bill collector, no. But the bottom line is that there is an interim situation and a long-term situation. What do you want to be when you grow up? But right now, obviously, we have them working very diligently on the current situation in the hospital, particularly the cash crunch over there. And there is a cash crunch. I don't want to hide it. Numbers are changing all the time, and I think that our consultants, Martin and Patricio, are doing a great job in monitoring this. I think that they will tell you that the hospital is becoming more cooperative. I reached out to the hospital today, and this has got to be our priority right now. And we need to keep that hospital. When I was a kid, it was Meadowbrook Hospital, but for the thousands of indigent people, uninsured, underinsured people, this is a critical institution in the county, and it's in trouble right now. You know, I think that this board was very wise a few years ago in including it as a covered organization, and I commend you for what you did. And as Chris said, and I think he's right, you know, this is the major fiscal problem that the county faces right now. And so I've asked them to make a brief public presentation, and then they'll be coming into executive session to make a presentation to us where we can ask questions. But I think for the benefit of the public, I'll hand it over to Martin to report to the board on an interim basis. And
Thank you.
Martin, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
All the way from Westchester, right?
Yeah. I fought the traffic
Okay,
and won.
that's, you can never win.
Can you hear him in the mic, in the back? Off the
Can
mic?
you hear me back there?
Or you could stand
Do you want me to stand by the speaker? Is that helpful? All right, thank you. So this is going to be a brief presentation, but I thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, as you've heard and as has previously been reported, you know, NIFA has significant concerns about NHCC's late 2023 liquidity. And that's what we have been retained for. We've been brought in to look at short-term liquidity, the requirements, and the actions that need to be taken in response thereto. Just as he said, we've really only been involved for a short period of time, about 5 weeks. And so most of our work around that 5-week period has been, you know, meeting with NIFA, meeting with NHCC management, obtaining information from them, and meeting with the NHCC board chair, all of which was geared towards developing a framework to assess the liquidity and liquidity needs over the coming months. And, you know, we've held these initial discussions with them to understand their plan towards addressing that. So this is all a work in process, Mr. Chairman. And you know, so at this point, I don't have any specific data to report, but we're working hard towards getting that so we can share that.
And are you comfortable that the hospital is cooperating with you?
They've
At this
become, you know, over the last, what would you say, 2 weeks, week and a half, 2 weeks, Patricio?
Yeah, we believe
It's opened up
access
quite a bit?
and enable has been some progress, but it's not optimal yet.
And what is your timetable? I know that this board, again, prior to my coming here, hired you for a specific task, and we'll discuss that in executive session.
Sure.
To extend it. But what's your timetable in terms of providing us with a report that?
Yeah, so the answer is soon, and soon is really predicated, and the reason, you know, if they're if we had access to all the information we needed, we'd probably be there today. So as we've now gotten more more access, I think it's gonna move quicker. But obviously, we're gonna look to get that report done as quickly as possible.
You
I
think you
can't put-
maybe before the end of the year?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Cooperation has not been a hallmark of the relationship
Yeah,
with the
I mean, let's put
hospital.
that, we will prepare, we'll prepare a report. It may be subject to some limitations because of access, but, obviously, I know that, that NIFA requires a report, and we're gonna work towards getting that into your hands as quickly as possible.
Good, and I think it's just important to note that, we wanna work with the hospital. We need their cooperation. And if you at any point feel that the hospital is not being optimally cooperative, I'd like you to let us know right away. Because they are a covered organization, and, we've got some connections that we can utilize. We wanna help the hospital. We're not here to throw bombs, we're not here to criticize. But they've gotta work cooperatively with us. We're prepared to work very cooperatively with them, and I'd like you to keep us informed about the progress that you're making.
We'll keep you up to date.
Yeah, and in terms of the board, I would just suggest that, based on what Martin says, that we'll probably schedule another board meeting for December to receive your report. But let's see how it goes. We'll try to figure that out.
Yeah, we'll keep you up to date on
Yeah,
exactly how that's going.
That'd be very helpful. I think one of the things I just mentioned to the board, and I talked to Kathy about it before, is starting in January, we're gonna have regularly scheduled meetings that you'll know well in advance what it is. Kathy is gonna reach out to all the board members to, what's the best night? Is it a Wednesday, is it a Tuesday, is it a Thursday? Whatever it is, and we'll try to have a calendar of meetings for 2024. And, we don't have to meet every month. We'll cancel some meetings, but at least, rather than kind of lurching and trying to figure out a date here and then a date there, we'll try to have regularly scheduled meetings as of January. We'll probably have to meet again in December, but we'll let you know. But starting in January, Kathy will reach out to you guys over the next week or so, so that we can try to get unanimity in terms of what's the best night for you, what's the best, is it the third week of the month? At the IDA, we were the third Thursday in every month. But something so that you guys don't have to change your plans. I know that we're all volunteers here, and it's not easy sometimes to schedule a meeting. So Kathy will work with you to try to come up with a calendar for next year. And Martin, if you'll stay, because I'm now gonna ask for a motion to go into executive session.
I'll move that we go to executive session where
I
we'll discuss
second.
legal and contractual matters. No
Okay.
action will be taken by the board while we're out.
Okay, yeah, so I want to entertain a motion for the directors to conduct an executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105 to consider a contract pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law and the financial history of a particular corporation. Is there a motion?
Made.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, just to tell you, you can stay. I would expect the executive session to last about 20 minutes, maybe a little longer, and then we will reconvene in public, and we'll probably have to vote on at least one item. Thank you. We'll be back. Okay, so I just want to, we're going to go back into open session. Do I hear a
I'll
motion
move
to
that
go
we,
back into open session?
I'll move that we exit executive session and move back to the open meeting.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we are gonna now take up the correction officer's contract. I'm gonna ask Gary DeLaverson, thank you for coming out this evening, to make a brief presentation about the contract, so we can then vote on it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members, thank you very much. So this is the last of the major collective bargaining agreements this round between the county and its representative workforce. This contract is the correction officers.
Closer to the mic.
Sorry. This contract is the Correction Officers Benevolent Association agreement covering correction officers up to correction captains. Above that are not covered by contract, they're non-represented. Roughly 850, 870 members of the county are covered by the contract. It's following the pattern that this board has approved back starting with the detectives and carrying through the superior officers, the police officers, CSEA, and now the correction officers. It is an 8.5-year contract, which goes out with a total cost of 14.76. That's a number that has become sort of almost biblical in our little world about how do we make sure that the pattern is conformed to that number, represents what is the arithmetic value of the contract on the last day of the contract, 8.5 years after its commencement. The raises are 2, 2, 2.5, 2.5, 3, 3 in the last 6 years of the 8.5-year contract. There's an increase for employees who have 15 years of service called the senior stipend. There's changes in the health contributions, so now employees will make a 2.5% contribution towards the cost of their benefits. There's a number of other provisions, all of which were in your summary. The critical element, again, is the fact that it maintains fidelity to the pattern that you guys have approved now. This will be your 5th time approving it. So that's the contract. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we did discuss it in executive
We
session.
did,
We
and
did.
thank you for the
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
presentation.
That, and for the other 5 agreements, and for your fine work to date.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we will discuss some further issues going forward.
Yep.
Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution
Made.
approving the contract?
Made.
I'll second it. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
No.
Okay, the contract carries. Gary,
Thank you very much.
Thank
I'll
you.
advise the correction
So-
officers. We'll be good. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
So I think that's it in terms of votes, right? So we're just
Yep.
gonna adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We will get to you on schedule.
Thank you so much.
Let's go back.